court, and the serious consequences has been arisen from the recent letter that we received from Minister Frances Fitzgerald, which was dated the 30th of November 2016. She, in her power as Minister for Justice, has taken the right to life from 48 victims, and in law she has no power to do that under the Right to Life Act and legislation. We are calling for the Minister of Justice now to apologise to the families of the deceased victims for what she has put in the letter. And we're also calling for her either to give a new inquiry or to give us an apology and retract everything that she has put in the letter. We're here today because we have no longer any hope in the process that she set up. We know it's going nowhere. She knows that she keeps coming back and asking us for more stuff and more stuff. She has gotten enough evidence now to reopen this inquiry with all the evidence and facts that are there from transcripts backed up by evidence. The right to life is very serious in relation to unlawful killing. If a case is technically wrong, it has to be reheard, and Minister Fitzgerald is well aware that the Stardust case is all over the place. It's wrong. Everything is wrong about it. There's no record of a 999 call. I'm going to pass you on to Paul O'Sullivan, our solicitor, and he'll explain about the right to life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 36 years ago, it's 36 years ago now, this awful tragedy. 48 people and one unborn. The state has a very definite obligation to protect the right to life, and indeed the right to people's bodily integrity and person and their good name, and that's in the Constitution. How it went about doing this was establishing a Keane tribunal and subsequently a Coffey independent examination. There were problems with both of those. Mr. Coffey, in reviewing Keane, said there was no justification for the conclusion that there was arson that night, and that took the names of the people there that night and the victims. But the key thing here is that there were other problems and with that initial review, a very detailed review, a full tribunal at great cost to the state, and it included the original Keane report had no evidence before it as to the fuel load that was in the first floor. There was a misapprehension of the structure of the building, and it put the fire on the ground floor or a basement area. In fact, the fire happened on the first floor, where over 240 gallons of cooking oil, huge amounts of paper, napkins, and plastic cups and saucers, that type of stuff, and accelerants, polishes. It was an absolute bomb. It was sheltered on the first floor by a thin partition, plasterboard partition, from the switch room. There was a history of electrical problems with the premises. When you put the two together, you've got a very strong presumption, given what happened. Now, I would say that, unfortunately, there'll probably be a resolution to the Oakland disaster and tragedy before there's a resolution to the Stardust. Yeah, straight away, they're talking about corporate manslaughter and murder in a similar situation. Now, one might take a view that the Keane tribunal wasn't going well. It didn't go anywhere. There were lots of problems with it. Coffey was appointed to assess the case for an independent examination, leading to see if there was any reality in a new inquiry. Now, he actually, in his report, he said that there could well be enough information for a new inquiry into the matter. He dished, as I say, the horrendous allegation that it was arson, and his report was altered effectively. We've done freedom of information. We've got the two reports, the initial report and the subsequent report, and the subsequent report changes fundamentally the recommendations by saying that instead of a new inquiry being possible, which was the whole nature of the investigation, that a resolution of the Doyle that arson wasn't concerned that night would be the remedy to sort the position. Now that's so. There were various other changes to the Coffey report. We think there were about 70. We tracked them, some small, some major, but we believe that this report was micromanaged by civil servants and rewritten. After that, the families prevailed upon the Minister to look into the matter. Minister of Justice Francis Fitzgerald, 2.5 years later, we're going nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
This seems to be, in effect, it looks like kicking it down the road, sidelining it. Now, there's a huge amount of evidence that's been gathered, a huge amount of work done by the families and the victims, researchers, their specific researcher, Geraldine Foy, and Robin here, their fire expert. A huge amount of research. And at all stages now in this Gilbride process, he's an investigating official, he's looking at the position, is to refer all the workload on the families, all the costs, all the work is being reflected back, and very little is being done. It looks like it's being used, as I say, to stall the process or put it off kilter. In any event, there's a number of very serious issues that fresh evidence and evidence that's been ignored, including asphyxiation. Five lads who were at a table in the North Alcove up in the Gods, who we believe were dead at the time of the 999 call.
No, they were dead before.
But they
before
were dead. They were dead.
They were dead before the ceasefire.
Yeah, but they were dead, and they were asphyxiated. We've got pathology reports, and they died of asphyxiation, chemical asphyxiation. So there's also the missing 999 call, which didn't appear. It was a 999 call from a resident in the area who saw the fire, allegedly at the time that it was the arson was observed, so-called arson. But anyway, there's a whole line of evidence, a whole line of independent evidence showing the fire in the premises before this time, in the roof space over the area of the storerooms. It's critical evidence. It's never been properly assessed. It's been ignored. It was ignored in Keene, and of course Keene. There's a difficulty with the Garda map, which is inaccurate. Recorded a basement, and didn't record the first floor. And there's huge issues there in relation to proper planning, safety, fire safety, and the building regulations as were at the time. All these issues were ignored because the fire was placed on the ground floor. All these matters speak for themselves. The fresh evidence has been adduced by the families and victims, experts, on a glass wall. There was supposed to be a glass wall there. The fire would be seen through the glass wall. Well, that's not the position. There was no glass wall. There's no glass residue in the materials underneath the glass wall facade when it was reviewed after the fire. Doesn't exist. There was a little aperture, but that was all there was. So at this stage, the victims' committee and families have had enough, and they want a proper inquiry. There hasn't been a proper inquiry yet, and the families are the most basic thing they're entitled to is the truth. The Constitution says that the state shall, in particular, by its laws, protect as best it can from unjust attack, and in the case of injustice, vindicate the life, person, good name, and property rights of every citizen. That is the obligation of the state. Very little has been done by the state over the years to get to the cause of the fire. We are aware that the current administration has set its mind against another inquiry because what they believe will be reputational damage. But the very least the families and other victims are and the deceased are entitled to is the truth. They're entitled for people to be held to account for what happened, and I would say that the Barrington report and Coffey said that there was absolutely no assistance provided for the victims of the tragedy in terms of follow-up, and that was necessary. Medical cards, other assistance because of continuing health problems, those things are important. The state should be assisting and supporting these families. It never has. I believe what was offered was something like 15 hours of counselling. Yeah. Sorry, the Community William Institute. So, I mean, that's really appalling. And so, ultimately, I think it does appear that this whole process has been used, the whole processes of the state have been used to frustrate the establishing the truth in this matter. Well, that's right. As I said at the beginning, the families are no longer interested in the Gilgood process. They want a proper inquiry of sorts. Don't want a tribunal. Don't want the cost and the messing of a tribunal.
Proper investigation.
A proper investigation. There's a